So we have some good clips to look at. Let's start off with, remember this guy, CNBC's Jim Cramer, who's kind of
the analyst.
Yeah. He's kind of like the crazy Eddie of CNBC.
Yeah, he throws stuff at the screen.
Yeah. So we have a great clip of him. He's reacting to some scary to him news. So just to set up the context here. So Jim Cramer is very afraid of UAW President Shawn Fain, whom he thinks is a Marxist. And let me just go to an article at Common Dreams to hear what he has to say, what Shawn Fain has to say. So Fain, who was elected to lead the union, the UAW, earlier this year, announced members' demands earlier this week in a speech broadcast on Facebook Live.
As I go to the table this week, I'll be giving the Big Three the most audacious and ambitious list of proposals they've seen in decades, and I wanted to share them with you. We're proposing the elimination of tiers on wages and benefits. It's wrong to make any worker a second-class worker. We can't allow it any longer in the UAW. The Teamsters just recently ended tiers at UPS, and we're going to end tiers at the Big Three. We're proposing substantial wage increases to offset years of damaging inflation and put auto workers back on a path towards shared prosperity. Yes, we're demanding double-digit pay raises. Big Three CEOs saw their pay spike 40% on average over the last 4 years. We know our members are worth the same and more. We're proposing cost of living allowance be restored. It's cost of living allowance that made sure working class communities thrive for decades. Taking that away hammered us, and it hammered our hometowns. We're proposing a defined benefit pension for all workers. All workers deserve the retirement security that UAW members had for generations. We're also proposing the reestablishment of retiree medical benefits. That's just as essential as a solid pension. So we're proposing the right to strike over plant closures also, as we've all endured. We've seen how that's happened with plants being shut down or idled in the last few years. Just to remind everybody, the Big Three have closed 65 plants over the last 20 years. That's been as devastating for our hometowns as it has been for us. We have the right to defend our communities from the corporate greed that's killing so many cities and towns.
So this is absolutely horrifying to Jim Cramer. Let's hear him react to it.
I mean, you were looking for any signal of labor peace.
Well, you want labor war? Take a look at the things that Shawn Fain is saying
about
autos. I mean, he's talking about a work week that's incredibly short. He's talking about going back to defined benefit. He's basically talking about that class that I had about the Spartacus Workers League and how Marx was wrong because Marx felt that there should be some capitalism. Only the workers belong. This man studied Trotsky. I gotta tell you, studied Trotsky before.
Okay, Jim Cramer has Trotsky-dar.
Pre-ice pick and ear.
You think some of the weakness?
Ice pick and ear. Did Trotsky get? I know he took an ice, but I think of an ice pick to the.
I think
head.
It was actually to the back of the head.
Yeah, I don't know the ear thing.
Maybe it doesn't really matter. In the
I mean, it's hard for me to take this guy serious now, right?
Yeah.
He's not the Trotsky expert he claims to be.
No, he's certainly not.
Certainly not.
This morning is about reading.
Honestly, I'm reading the guy.
Over Fitch.
Walter Reuther. Now, Walter Reuther seems like he's a man of peace. It is
deep cut.
It's you just have to pump the brakes there in a little bit. I mean, it is a deep cut, but for anyone who knows anything about Walter Reuther and the UAW, who's a man of peace, everything that Shawn Fain was talking about in the context of what he wants are exactly the type of contracts that Walter Reuther used to sign with the Big Three every single time. So, I mean, I don't know. He's obviously not the expert on anything that he claims to be. So-called financial expert.
I have to tell you that if Shawn Fain, who is the UAW head, if he gets his way, you can short every single auto company until the cows come home. They will be the least competitive companies on earth. There are companies in France right now who are saying, holy cow, what are we doing working Wednesday and Thursday? Why can't we be like Ford Motor?
Well, they present to GM today.
It must stop. I mean, honestly, this is not capitalism, all right? It's not capitalism. It's some other form. I took 7 courses on communism at Harvard because I was in a particularly bad period at Harvard. There should be an 8th course, Shawn Fain, and what he had to do with Engels. It was Marx and Engels and Fain.
We're going to watch it, that contract.
Marx, you know about Marx and Engels, but do you know about Marx and Engels and Fain?
Yeah, I mean, that's like the new 5 heads. Just replace Stalin with Shawn Fain.
Exactly.
You got it. I mean, it's just, I mean, the hyperbole is crazy. I mean, I guess on a show that's designed for Wall Street bankers, you know, I think Jim Cramer knows this very well. And I think a lot of it is just, is actually very knowing dissembling, because the only people who watch these like daytime shows on CNBC are Wall Street traders and other people like that. And you got to keep them interested somehow. So you're throwing a bunch of red meat to the audience or whatever with these ridiculous statements. But I mean, you know, obviously the point's been made there by Shawn Fain, $21 billion in profits in the first half of this year. And let's not forget that these are also the companies that are getting free money from the federal government for the so-called transition to electric vehicles, where they are destroying tens of thousands of jobs potentially from auto workers because you need fewer people to build these new plants. But I believe it was $9.2 billion that Ford received from the Biden administration with no strings attached vis-a-vis the issues of workers' rights, even though Biden says, oh, I'm here for workers, I'm good for workers, I'm the best for workers, but just gave them free money to set up a new EV related plant where there, you know, could be a union, might not be a union, don't have to pay people. And, you know, the point that he's making there is key. I mean, you got people working these 10-hour swing shifts, people whose bodies are being completely and totally destroyed, which people don't talk about with auto workers on this assembly line, but it's a huge, huge issue that's going on there. And, you know, it's getting worse and worse. And it's an industry that, you know, really pioneered the idea of quote unquote lean production. You know, you talk about Amazon and what's going on in the warehouse. You talk about the 57-second minute from Toyota, which is designed to make sure that almost every single second you are at your station, you are in motion, eliminating breaks to be as short as they possibly can, extending the workday, making people work overnight. I mean, it's extraordinarily difficult to be an auto worker in almost every possible way. So they are not paid lavishly. They are actually underpaid from my perspective in terms of what these CEOs are making. And in terms of what really happens, that's why they want defined pension benefits, because when they have to retire, they really have to retire. You can't just go get a second job. You know, your back is out, your knees are gone. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Shawn Fain, you know, the so-called Marxist. I definitely don't think he is a Marxist. Right. I mean, I will say his press director for the UAW is in DSA. So maybe that is a sign that this is a secret Marxist plot to destroy America. But it seems like they're basically just asking for what they had in 1983, as opposed to any big new thing. So it seems more than fair. In fact, you could argue that perhaps they're being generous to the auto companies with what they're asking for, quite frankly.